in Memphis yesterday, meant to go to the Civil Rights Museum. Due to COVID-19, they had like restricted, limited access, so I didn't get to go. I was kind of bummed.
You know, as many times as I've been to Memphis, I have not been to that.
Same here. I've been to Memphis countless times,
right.
And I've never been to that, and I've never been to Graceland with no reasonable excuse whatsoever.
So Graceland 10 years ago was a much better tour than it is now.
Why?
Well, 10 years ago, first of all, they used to have actual tour guides. Now they do the thing that everybody's doing where they give you a iPad and a headset, and you have to punch in the room you're in, but then people don't leave the rooms because there's no actual tour guide moving people on. So it just is a giant cluster now. I mean, it's still worth going to see, to to get the history. I will tell you this, that it's not as big of a house as you would think it would be based on, the fact that it has a name and it was Elvis's house.
Yeah.
I've driven past it countless times.
Yeah.
But taking the tour I actually haven't done.
Is Sun Studios in Memphis?
Yep.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Sure is.
Like, that's what I want to go to. I'd like to go, and I imagine it's probably a little bit of the same situation. It's not that big of a recording.
Well, no, I mean, it was made for blues artists that had no money, so it's like a closet.
Right.
I mean, it's tiny.
We should do the Blues Trail sometime when the world gets not stupid.
Yeah.
So never.
Craig saw a little seed of hope blossom.
Yeah,
booming.
We're on the Blues Trail. Nobody told you.
Yeah. Somebody took the Blues Trail and mixed it with the Trail of Tears, and here we are.
Yeah. Oh. We need to bypass that and go to the Bourbon Trail is what we need to do.
I don't know why we can't just do all of this. We just start in South Mississippi, work our way up and east.
I did do the Coors tour once. The Coors Brewery.
Oh man.
And
shame on you.
Yeah, I mean, I lived in Colorado and we were up there we lived in Denver, and a group of us had to go to Golden for some training. So we were there. So it was like, okay, something to do once we were done training. But yeah, you get 3 free beers at the end of the tour. They said,
I got to make it up to you somehow.
Yeah, they said if you ever come back and you just want the beer, you just go in and tell them you're there for the short tour, and they'll take you to the back and let you have the free beer.
Oh, nice.
So you don't actually have to go through the tour to get the free beer again.
So it's not bourbon, but several years ago, as either a birthday present or a Christmas present, a friend made me what's called a Tennessee Squire. So I own probably a literally square inch of land at the Jack Daniel's distillery. So I have a little bitty square that I own, which is funny.
Do they send you your share of profits every year?
No. But it's just something that you can say that's like, oh, like I own a piece of the Jack Daniel's distillery, which it's, funny. I don't like Jack Daniel's. It'll do in a pinch. Like if I'm at some place and all they have is like, well liquor on the top shelf. And it's like, okay, yeah, Jack and Coke is the extent of your alcoholic abilities. Then sure,
was it Jack Daniels that was in the second Kingsman's movie?
I didn't watch that.
I don't.
Yeah. I had a Jack Daniels yesterday. Strangely enough, first one I've had in longer than I can remember.
How'd it treat you?
I mean, it was okay. I mean, it's a Tennessee whiskey to me is kind of one dimensional,
right?
So it's it is what it. That's of course I don't suppose that's really a knock. I mean, I think that's what it's supposed to be. I like bourbon because it's more. There's so much more to it. But it's just a very one-dimensional whiskey that does what it's supposed to do. I mean, a lot of people appreciate it for that fact. So, I'm not
at the end of the day.
Daniels.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it did what it's supposed to do.
Yeah.
Well, do you guys know what else is one-dimensional and burns as it goes down?
Southern Fried Geekery.
An episode of the
Why
Southern
can't
Fried-
why couldn't we have said, you know what else does what it's supposed to do?
I mean, you know.
I would much rather claim that than one-dimensional burns as it. Yeah, I don't like that.
Okay, well, you know what else does what it's supposed to do?
No.
The next episode of the Southern Fried Geekery podcast, as it always.
There we
you
go.
Does that meet your standards?
That's so much better.
Okay, well, we'll go with that. Well, hey everybody, welcome back. We are glad you joined us for another little romp through the comic book, the medium, and the conversation that we all love so much. We are more than happy to have you all. More than that, we're more than happy to be sitting down together. Well, I guess separately, but connected through the interwebs as we talk about these things that we know and love. As always, I am Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
Matt Trogdon.
And I'm Craig Lance.
And welcome back. For those of you who have missed us these past 7 days, long 7 days, it's been a long week. We hope that you have found your way over to our Facebook group, Southern Fried Geekery Podcast. You can search for it. It's right there. It's waiting on you. We've had lots of great conversations, people posting about news, all kinds of fun stuff. Good times were had. You can also check out panels and things that we retweet on the retwitter, whatever it's called.
The retwitter.
Yeah, that thing. We're at SFG Podcast on both of those. And if you got any questions, comments, or concerns about what's going on in the world, life, comics, etc., whiskey, maybe you want to tell us about your favorite bourbon or why you think maybe Jack Daniels is not one-dimensional. You're wrong, but that's okay. You can let us know. You send us an email at southernfriedgeekery@gmail.com. We will gladly read what you have to say, and we'll only snicker a little bit. As
Caleb has been hanging around with me too long when
Why
he's
is that?
telling people they're wrong before
true,
they
yeah.
even say it.
Well, Boo, you're like my mentor. I look up to you. You're like the big brother I never had.
Yeah, something like that.
You know how Baby Yoda looks at like whatever that thing was, a cup of coffee or a frog or what? He just like glances up in those little eyes. That's the way I look at you. I have a picture of you in my office. I just stare at it longingly. And
Did you guys watch this week's episode?
No, I hadn't watched
Season 2, episode 1.
Mm-mm.
Well, I was kind of hoping you had.
I have not either. I haven't had time. Busy weekend.
Well, I wanted Matt's take on them completely ripping off Dune. Not that it's a bad thing because they did it really well.
They've been doing that since 1975, bro.
Yeah, I mean, they had giant sandworms. We'll just leave it at that.
Well, I can't say that I mean, I'm all for Dune inspiring other media. So
yeah, they
Can't
did
have
it
enough
really,
sandworms.
really well, and I loved the episode. But you couldn't help but think of Dune watching it.
well, good. See, that's a good thing. You need to think
Yeah.
of Dune.
well, but
I randomly saw a kid reading Frank Herbert's Dune last week. Couldn't believe it. I was like, wow, the future.
he found hope.
Did you pour some water on him so he would grow a little bit, blossom?
I was like, bro. I pointed at his book. I go, bro, Dune. Then he had to explain to me how he came across said book and what inspired him to read it. It was awesome.
Nice.
Thinking about the connection between Star Wars and Dune, though, the sandworm and the asteroid was kind of a Doom-esque sandworm. So I think there's some precedent there. There's a fine line between homage and ripoff.
As much as I love Star Wars, you cannot say that there's not a lot of precedent in the Star Wars Dune
for sure.
connection. So
I think the hubs and I are gonna plop down on the couch and watch that first episode tonight.
Yeah.
See what's happening up in season 2. So good.
More jolly goodness.
Jolly goodness.
Has he grown
Yep.
any?
No.
Has our kid?
It is essentially taking up right where the other one ended.
Nice.
Yeah.
Check that out. What you guys been reading this week? I know you've been watching TV. I know you've been staring at kids while they read Dune, which is a little weird, man.
Well, I turned the subtitles onto a bunch of movies.
It's like almost like school.
Right. I read Nailbiter Returns #6 from Image Comics, Josh Williamson and Mike Henderson. This is a continuation, of course, of the original Nailbiter story. Now you have a bunch of wannabe buckaroo butchers that are out there trying to recreate, what do you call them when they mimic other serial killers?
Copycat killers.
Copycat killers, yeah. So they're all dressing and acting like the original killers from this town. And now, of course, the original gang is on the fight trying to stop it. And then I read Sex Criminals #69, Chip Zdarsky and Matt Fraction. Honestly, this was a book that didn't really need to be told because the story had all wrapped up in the last issue. But it was kind of nice to go back and get a few more laughs from Chip and Matt, which they've done very well throughout that entire series. So wasn't upset at all that I read it. And if you've read the series, should read it. But, again, not necessarily required to finish the story. Just kind of gives you a happily ever after send off. Then I read Thor #8, Donny Cates and Aaron Cooter, Marvel Comics. This has been one of my favorite Marvel books for all 8 issues at this point. And the interaction between Thor and Iron Man in this issue is enough reason to read it aloud.
Yeah, Aaron's lines on that book are outstanding. I mean,
and to be honest, it's some of my favorite Donny Cates Marvel work is happening in Thor. So, can
we go back to Nailbiter for a second?
Yeah.
Did you use the phrase Buckaroo Butchers?
Yeah, that's what they were. That's what this town in Buckaroo, Oregon, they have an unusual amount of serial killers. Mm-hmm. Like they have one in every generation, or every probably 10 years, there's a new serial killer that shows up. And the original one was the Buckaroo Butcher was his name. So
can we steal that and name our next punk band after it? Because
sure.
That's amazing.
I'm sure Josh Williamson and Mike Henderson would not have a problem with that at all.
I'm gonna name my first child Buckaroo Butcher. That's like a great piece of alliteration. No, I'm not joking. I'm not being facetious. Like that's a kick-ass name, the Buckaroo Butcher. Like it sounds like an amazing Halloween costume.
Probably would have been.
What you up to,
man? In fact, you could probably pick any of the killers from that series and turn them into really good.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Halloween costumes.
Well, what you been reading, Matt?
Well, 3 standouts that I read. Number 1, to nobody's surprise, is the latest issue of issue number 39, actually, of Marvel's The Immortal Hulk. Per the norm, this is Al Ewing writing, Joe Bennett penciling, and Roy Jose and Bellardino Bravo on inks. Just when you thought the series couldn't get any more nightmare fuel, the nightmare fuel is ratcheted up. This issue was amazing. I mean, it's crazy good. And this one certainly went in a direction I did not foresee. Opening up this issue, I thought I was going to see it take one direction, and that is not where it went. I'm supposing you guys read this.
Yeah, I got it read this week.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
unreal.
I thought I'm like you. I thought something else was going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I did not see this path coming that we went down for that issue. But I mean, it's amazing.
I mean, that's kind of, you probably say that about every issue of this series, to be honest.
Well, this one, I mean, yeah, this one took a turn. Yeah, I just didn't see coming. A lot of the others, the way the previous issue ends, it's setting up the next issue. And to some degree, it follows that setup. This did not. I mean, it built this one character up, and you're thinking, okay, he's going to come in, and it's going to be, welcome to Ass Kicking Town, negative Ghost Rider. That's not what we saw.
Pattern was full.
Man, so second to that, another standout is also from Marvel, X of Swords, part 11 of 22, Stasis. Jonathan Hickman and Teenie Howard writing, Pepe Larraz and Mahmoud Asrar artist, and Marte Garcia on the colors. Art in this book was out freaking standing. The writing has been outstanding from day one, obviously, but this was a great freaking issue. As heavy as these books are, as many pages as these books are, they're very easy to read. It's not a chore to get through them because the dialogue and the story is so compelling, at least to me. And there's a standout moment where Apocalypse just basically has had enough with one particular character. Have you guys read this one?
I have not. I'm actually planning on getting caught up on X of Swords today.
So. Man, this one I really dug. Really great character moments in this one. So can't recommend that one enough. So those are my big two standouts from this week.
Nice. Yeah, so the X of Swords is like 2 books down on my stack. It's going to be something I'll try to get through tonight, but I would love to be a fly on the wall in those meetings just to see what part of these books is Hickman and what part is Teenie Howard, because this is not the first time those two have teamed up together and produced some really, really good content. And there's something about the books that those two specifically work on together that it seems more personable to me. And I don't know why that is. I haven't really worked through that, but I think as far as writing together goes, that Hickman and Teenie Howard have a really good shorthand, and those two work particularly well together.
Yeah, they killed it in this one.
And back to Immortal Hulk, I absolutely am with you on that. I didn't see what came coming, but once it happened, it just clicked. Like, it works so well. It is ridiculous how tight these scripts are. Like I think I think there are some things, as with all things, that we lose a little bit from month to month. But I think when we go back and do like a big reread of this all together, it is crazy how just neatly threaded these things are. Because the twist, while it was like you said, it was the thing you didn't see coming, it makes perfect sense to what they've been doing. Like, it just works so well in that narrative.
Yeah, well, it's the never ceasing amount of compelling material in each one of these issues is crazy to me. I mean, Al Ewing's writing and Joe Bennett's art, it's just, I mean, it's really an awesome show of talent when you can make every one of these issues feel like a key issue. It's stupid.
Just more layers than Shrek's onion. I mean, Jesus. Shit is insane. Well, I read a few books this week. I want to talk about some of them. You've heard me kind of wax poetic about before, but some of them maybe not. So continuing to be one of my favorite books on the shelf. I read Philadelphia #9. Are either one of you on this book? I always forget what you're reading.
I'm on it, but I did not read this issue as of yet.
So, Matt, are you reading this? I know you read the first
No.
one. Okay, yeah. So this book, it continues to be one, like, an amazingly well-written story. Like, if you liked shows like Lovecraft Country, or the Watchmen the Watchmen television series, you're gonna love this book. It ties in history to vampire lore to unspoken history, like the things that we kind of gloss over and whitewash in history. It gives that perspective. Dude, Rodney Barnes is outstanding. I saw somebody tweeting this week, because I'm young and I pay attention to the tweeters, that somebody needs to hire Rodney Barnes to write the next Blade movie, and I could not agree more. Like, that shit would be outstanding. And dude, Sean Alexander's his art on this book is stylistically, you couldn't ask for something better. I mean, it's haunting, and it's vague in the right places, but it does it just to scare you. You almost don't trust your own eyes when you're looking at his panels, and his color palette is just, it shows you degradation is the best word I can come up with for his art, but it's almost it's controlled decay, and the shit's just stupid. It's the best stuff I've seen him do since he worked on Spawn, however many forevers ago. The dude's just killing it. I bounced over into Marvel land for a little bit this week, based on the recommendation of our friend and member of the podcast community, David Price. He was talking about a book on his show, 11 O'Clock Comics, not too long ago. It was the Marvel Snapshot Spider-Man one shot, written by Howard Chaykin and written and drawn by Howard Chaykin with colors by Jesus Aburtov. Very interesting book. It did that thing that one or two of the other snapshots have done, because these are just little like one issue snippets into a character's life. Some of them have focused really closely on the actual character. Some of them have focused on like tangential characters or people in that world, but to do so gives you a glimpse of really the makeup and the genetics of what makes the hero. So in this case, it followed like some one a B-level, C-level villain trying to do their thing, and some other side characters in the Spider-Man universe. But in doing so, it gave you a really good idea of the heart of Spider-Man, but also kind of the world that he lives in, when it comes to the dealing with the Daily Bugle and being a dude who lives a kind of a lower income level, at least now that he's not a billionaire, life in Manhattan, trying to do some good stuff and everything. It was interesting. It gave you kind of a street level view of Manhattan life, of New York life, to really show off what makes Spidey just tick and what makes him cool. So that was fun. And then last but certainly not least, I picked up and it's actually a manga, but it's based off of a Wes Anderson movie. And I've actually not seen it before. It's called Isle of Dogs. Have either of you watched that?
No.
I have not, no.
Wes Anderson's a filmmaker that I dig, but I just haven't checked this out yet. But so essentially, this is a manga adaptation of his movie, The Isle of Dogs. It's by a guy named Minotauro Mokazuki. So it was fun. It's gorgeous. Number one, if for nothing else, just to look at these pages is worth buying this book. But so essentially, the main characters is this young boy. He's been orphaned, and he and his dog Spot they go on an adventure to this little island, and all kinds of craziness ensues and follows. There's this island called Trash Island that they end up on, and I don't want to say it's not necessarily a coming of age story, but it's a very human story. But if you like dogs, you're gonna check this out. So he gives his dog treats called Ninja Biscuits, which is fun. So, but no, it's cool stuff. I picked this up on a whim just because of the cover, and I didn't realize it until I read the back of it that it was a Wes Anderson adaptation. But I was just like, oh shit, let me go check this out. So fun stuff. Dark Horse publishes that, so if you ever get a chance, snag it.
Nice.
Good stuff all around.
Yeah.
So this week, if I'm not mistaken, we have gathered together to pour over the newest. I don't know what you want to call it. The newest section, the newest
comic book.
Well, that, but it's the newest iteration or the newest panel on the really great, large and expanding mosaic of the Black Hammer universe that Jeff Lemire has concocted and has built and is really pouring a lot into, and that is the first issue of Colonel Weird Cosmagog that we all sat down and poured through this week. Again, published by Dark Horse Comics, who's been doing some really great work lately. And this one in particular is drawn. Drawn is true, but he also is painted wonderfully by Mr. Tyler Crook from one of my personal favorite series ever, Harrow County. And so I was really excited into digging this and digging into this and checking it out. And I'm curious what you guys thought of the book.
Oh, it was strong. I really dug this book.
Yeah, it was another good entry in this series. Can't I don't have any complaints at all about it.
So have you guys been following all of the different Black Hammer tie-ins or Black Hammer adjacent stories they've been writing?
Most of, I think I've only skipped one or two.
Yeah.
I've not read anything Black Hammer in a long time. I dropped Black Hammer a long time ago, actually.
Oof, that hurts my heart. Why?
It just, I don't know. It got to where it became so many things. I frankly did not want to keep up with all the different things it was becoming. If it had stayed one main series and one main storyline, I cannot imagine I would have dropped it. But it became so many things. I got exhausted with it.
I can see that. And I think that's fair. Like there's another book that I'm reading that ties into it called Skull Digger and Skeleton Boy, which genuinely has nothing to do with the Black Hammer universe that we, as we know it, as tied to characters in this book. But it's more of an homage or a love letter, if you will, to the hero sidekick genre, with a big hat tip to Frank Miller. But yeah, like you said, it doesn't have anything to do with these stories. But if you've been keeping up with the main story and the essentially that first line of characters that came out, then you kind of know who Colonel Weird is. He is this, I think, analog is fair to say of a character like Adam Strange, maybe mixed with the Atom a little bit. Like Jeff Lemire is, in creating this, is he's using profiles of some of the major heroes that we know throughout comics lore, largely using the Justice League, I think, as a roadmap for some of these characters. But not Adam Strange, Colonel Weird he's a man out of time and place. And I guess we should say for all of these comics and all of the books that we talk about today, there is a significant spoiler warning as we pour through these things. There's no real way to talk about them without dropping some of the details just for context. But he's a character that plays a big role in the formation of the Black Hammer universe, in the extent of all of these heroes gathered together to fight the anti-god, and they think they beat them, but they don't really know. They get sucked into this little black hole universe where they live on a farm, and they don't know it at the time, but it's actually this is basically a chronal pocket that was invented by Colonel Weird and by Madame Dragonfly, to kind of save everybody, to keep them basically to lie to them, but because the only way that they could stop the anti-god, it's kind of the Superman theory. If you remove the hero, then you remove the villain and the destruction of the world. So in all of that, you get Colonel Weird, who is this character who never seems like he is completely there. Like if you've ever talked to somebody who's got a severe case of mental illness and they like look and they speak at you but not really to you, it's almost like they look through you. That's kind of the state that Colonel Weird exists in. He speaks in riddles, so like, and these secrets of the universe esque type sentences, and nobody really knows what the hell he's got going on or what he's saying, but he always seems to know a secret that no one else can really tap into, throughout all of these books. Well, this book finally takes a focus on a little bit of his history and what makes him who he is, how he got to that state, because he hasn't always been there, right? Like he hasn't always been this flighty guy who is able to traverse the space between, this connective tissue between molecules and atoms and universes and everything else. He started off as a boy, as a normal child. He's a very human figure, that lived arguably a very normal childhood, until something happened. And And this is where that story kind of picks up. He kind of like flashes into the middle of a stream of a street, and he's looking for his friends. Like he's looking for Abraham Slam, and he's looking for Gale, and all of these people that he was on this team with, and no one's around. He ends up in this kind of, a road with no name out in some generic desert looking east or west Texas looking landscape where there's nothing but horizon above you, and a random gas station on the side of the road, as a lot of horror stories are want to start off with. And he's in his little superhero suit, like he's got his Adam Strange-esque red jumper with his oxygen tank and his blaster on his side, and he's looking around, and he doesn't know what's happening. He doesn't know where he's at or when he is, what time and what universe he's at. Excuse me. But he goes and he walks into this gas station. As he's doing so, he's remembering his friends. He's remembering Barbalian and Talkie Walkie and all the people that he was trying to save the world with. But as he enters this gas station, it's almost like his body, imagine a lava lamp. Like that's the only way I can really describe it without you seeing it. His body just kind of molds and starts to disintegrate, and he turns into a child. He's this young boy walking into a gas station, as you might see it and remember it from his early childhood, say 1940s, 1950s, very, very Eisner-esque landscape, Saturday Morning Post type scene. And he's walking into the gas station, and I'm thirsty, and the clerk behind the desk is like, oh, well, hey, for a nickel you can get a pop. I keep them ice cold in the back. And he's like, well, no, Ma sent me down here to get milk and bread, and she only gave me a quarter, so I can't do it. And of course, this guy in the neighborhood, knows all the kids in the neighborhood. Very nice old man. He's like, nah, man, I'll throw in a pop for free. This really, the idea of the simpler time in middle America really plays through. But as he looks out the window, everything out the window just isn't, it changes. It becomes this circular, almost storm-like visage of death and the connection between the universes, and it sucks him in, and he goes to a whole different scene, a whole different memory. It's almost like he's traversing through his own brain, and it's all of his buddies on a rooftop getting ready to go fight Anti-God, that you see in those first 12 issues, or leading, you get the idea of the first 12 issues. And his connection to those characters, especially to people like Gale, as they're getting ready to make the ultimate sacrifice, really shines through. But right as that moment, at the crux of that fight, it all fades away again, and he's stuck in this really decrepit, rundown, dilapidated version of the gas station from his childhood, and there's nothing there. And he walks outside, and he sees his spaceship hanging out by the gas tank, and he's like, oh, there you are. I've missed you, and I knew I would find you here eventually. And as he gets in his spaceship, he turns back into a mid 30s, maybe early 40s adult, a cosmonaut, he's in a spaceship, and he's getting ready to blast off and go explore the universe. Very, very space race-esque shape and time. And what you get from all of this is that it's not just that he's dejected in space and time, that he's dejected in these very fourth dimensional ways, that he is unable to conflate what is memory and what is imagination, and where he is in his own world, in his own life. The lines have started to blur together. I mean, I can't imagine what that's like, but there's an idea, one of my greatest fears, and I'll get personal for a second. One of my greatest fears is that I'll get a disease like Alzheimer's one day, and I won't be able to differentiate between where I'm at and who I know and the relationships I have with those people, or even myself. I think about people like my grandfather, who's 92 when he passed away, but those last few months, at times he thought he was an 8-year-old boy. He was looking for his mom, and he thought I was a cousin, and he would look at his own kids and just think that they were his neighbors, and he wanted to go home. And that's kind of where Colonel Weird is in this story, and he realizes it, and it's scaring the ever loving hell out of him, because his entire persona, everything he knows, his intelligence, his what makes him is starting to dissolve. It's starting to shatter, and as he's lost something in his travels, and it is getting to the point to where he can no longer he's losing his shit, for lack of a better words. And so he has to go internal. Like he reaches this space, assumedly in his own mind, where all these different versions of young Colonel Weird are there throughout his life, and he's almost apologizing to them for letting it come unraveled, for losing his tether to reality. And the little boy version of him is like, well, hey, whenever I lose something, my ma says that we should go back to the last place we remember having it. We should retrace our steps. And he's like, you know what? Sometimes out of the mouth of babes comes the most obvious answer. And so he's like, here, well, you take me there. And so, little boy version of Colonel Weird, who's just Randy. Like, he's not a colonel. He's not weird. He's just Randy. Grabs him by the hand, and they kind of walk off into a field of wheat as the sun's setting. And, you just see old man Colonel Weird just crying because he knows where he's at, and he feels a connection to this place, to the beauty of this place and the quietude of this place. And in the distance, you hear somebody call Randy, and it's Colonel Weird's mother. And Colonel Weird, all you see at this point is the boy running there. So he is going to be in the body and the mindscape of this young man. And that's kind of where the first issue ends. It's obviously a to be continued kind of thing. But from here, really, at least what I get, and I'm curious if you guys have the same feeling, is that it's going to start literally doing this thing where it retraces Colonel Weird's life, and it's going to show where the pieces are broken throughout his world, and where he lost touch with his humanity, and where he stopped seeing people as something akin to himself. And I'm very interested in that.
Well, I think it's obvious that that's what we're getting, is kind of this tale of his life.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the way it reads to me is we're seeing and going to see more of how this intergalactic travel, how that affects the mind,
right,
and your perception of reality.
That's what I'm looking forward to seeing the most, and especially as he uses it to lace together the pieces of what makes him him. It's going to be kind of weird seeing if at the end of this, and who knows if that's what we're going to get, seeing a Colonel Weird who is not Colonel Weird, like, somebody who kind of has it together and is able to communicate in complete sentences and in thoughts that actually make sense. That's going to be interesting to see if he can pull that together.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a journey for sure. We're going to see, different sides of him that we haven't seen. And surely he must feel like he's going to be able to pull it off, or he wouldn't have started this journey. But yeah, it's going to be a interesting look into the mind of a madman, is the way I would put it. But mad, not like the sense of like crazy destructive mad, but mad and just the not having full mental capacities based on the things he's seen and experienced. And what would, if somebody showed you everything and the way everything is connected in the universe, it would probably blow your mind as well.
Oh, for sure.
So yeah,
see Frank Herbert's doing.
So it's kind
see, it all ties back to Dune.
It does, and that's really what the show's about.
It's kind of interesting. As I was reading this, I was kind of thinking about all the movies and all the bits and pieces of literature and art that we have that show the mind's descent into madness. I can't think of, and this, I mean, I'm not saying they don't exist. I'm just saying I literally can't recall very many things that reverse that and show you somebody coming out of madness. which is kind of what I feel like is being attempted here. Yeah, I was thinking of I mean, a number of things, but you get this a lot in, um, shit, I went blank.
Sorry, I can't help you.
Jack Nicholson played in the movie,
The Shining.
The Shining. Shit.
Yeah.
I'm going to cut this out so I don't sound like a dumbass. You get this a lot in the, in books like The Shining, where it starts off with normalcy and just it's a slow progression into insanity. But this seems like it's taken a reverse course on that, to me at least, and playing with that idea. Can you guys think, like, I literally can't. Can y'all think of anything that does that?
I cannot.
That backs tracks from madness to normalcy. Is that what you're saying?
Right. Yeah.
I can't think. I mean, nothing comes to mind. I mean, you see stories where people have attempted that. Right. I didn't get that from this story. It'd be interesting to see if that's what he's actually doing. It seems to me like he's trying to, and well, maybe this is what you're saying, try to get a grip on his history, because his time away from terrestrial Earth has frankly affected his mind has been exposed to things that you can't backtrack on, kind of like Space Odyssey. There's another Stanley Kubrick reference for you. You experience something so radically different from terrestrial Earth, or time and space is completely different than anything you've ever experienced. It alters how your mind processes information. And that's the way I read this book, is that's what's going on with this character. He's not crazy. He just frankly interprets information completely different based on what he's been exposed to.
Yeah. And I think that's exactly what I'm saying. I think you're right. I think a better way to put it than going insane is almost sewing together reality and the way that you interpret reality. Like, he's got these dejected bits and pieces because of exactly what you've talked about. He says several times in this book, like, I see the pattern. Like, he sees some great cosmic, fourth dimensional idea, and it's broken the way that he sees reality as a human is supposed to see it, and I'm using air quotes for supposed to. And I think you put it a better way than I did, but I think we're talking about the same thing. As he re-anchors himself to the universe as humanity knows it. I think that's what I'm looking at. Which is, it's cool. Like I said, I don't know too many stories that have done that. I think that they could not have picked a more perfect artist for this book. Which, I mean, you guys know me. I'm a sucker for watercolor as it is. You give me guys like Tyler Crook. You give me, I mean, any number of people who are in that vein. I'm just going to fall in love with them and fawn over them. Tyler Jenkins is another one that really does it for me. But there is something I mentioned before. When you get to these pages where he's drawn like a kid, there's almost a Will Eisner quality to the thickness of his line. But then you look at these other pages where it's like this sepia tone backdrop to the 1950s or 60s characters that were in the heroes, and you see something completely different, but it's all stemming from the same artist. It's really incredible. There's this page in this book where the world is shattering around him, but it's not like it's the cosmic world. It's this Jack Kirby like, some shit you might see in early Fantastic Four with floating eyeballs and the space between the atoms and molecules and space between universes, where all that is shattering and it's collapsing around him. And he's in just kind of just all American, and again, using that phrase loosely because it's got a lot of baggage too, but this middle America, like grassroots field, coming around him. And that's where you see that really dynamic, just gorgeous color-filled sunset, that I think folks like us here in Arkansas get used to seeing, that I don't know that a lot of people in other places do. Just where, the sky is this weird flecks of pinks and oranges and purples, and this kaleidoscope of color as the sun sets. I don't know that anybody but Tyler Crook could have really pulled this off. And he did so well. Like I can't talk about these pages enough.
I mean, it is beautiful art for sure. I mean, if you've read anything Tyler Crook's worked on, you know what to expect, and you know that's what you get out of this is Tyler Crook type pages.
I mean, I also love the page. Apparently, there was a time in his life where Colonel Weird was a hippie, where he almost started a cult, apparently. And there's these scenes where he's essentially just floating in a very yogi style, hovering above the ground, talking to people who follow him. And he really lays it out in a way that I think surmises the Colonel Weird as I know the character throughout all these Jeff Lemire works, is that he's not a violent man, but he won't let anything happen to the people that he loves. And I think in that one sentence, they really encompass all that embodies this character. So I'm looking forward to it, man. Like they could have, if they had have made a comic book in a lab that was meant to say, hey, make Caleb in Arkansas like this, then it would probably look something a lot like this. It's a very human story, very spacey, very weird, very psychological. And at the end of the day, the watercolors just melt my little heart. So,
well, as Matt said earlier, this is this story, the Black Hammer universe has started to wear on me a little bit, as much as I loved it when it first started. Mm-hmm. But this is one that I will definitely be sticking on.
I'm curious if Matt is. I know he said he jumped off the main line when it started going in all these weird different tangential places. Matt, are you going to end up sticking with this for the 4 issues?
I probably am. This was just a really compelling one-off about a character's character. I mean, and I typically am going to enjoy any given character exploration piece. That's something I really dig on, and I liked the Black Hammer universe storyline when I was reading it. I just got fatigued with all the spinoffs. That's just a personal hang up. It's certainly not a quality knock. But yeah, I really dug this. It was a really interesting character exploration piece.
I'm always curious. Do you guys think I was close to the mark? Like, I think the Adam Strange is kind of a given, just the way his outfit is designed. But I also felt like this was a little bit of the Adam as far as that character goes. Do y'all think I was close to that? Is that who this is supposed to be? Because you read these Jeff Lemire books and you can kind of point out the character profiles. Like Barbalian is a weird mix, or I don't even know these weird mix. He's essentially Martian Manhunter, and you've got Abraham Slam, who is Superman in some sense, Golden Gale, who I think might actually just be Gail Simone, who just turns into a young person with power. Or can you guys think of any of the other DC Justice League-esque characters that you think tied into it, or is that pretty much on the mark?
I mean, it seemed like, this is, it screams to me a Adam Strange analog. I mean, Jesus Christ, his name is Colonel Weird.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's right there on the name. The Adam thing, I don't pick up on the Adam connection. I mean, this is just another interpretation of an Adam Strange type character. Frankly, a more compelling one as far as I'm concerned.
Well, yeah,
certainly more compelling than the current Adam Strange. Knock on. I'm just not enjoying that, but that's a different story.
Can't co-sign that. I'm enjoying that one as well. But it's telling a different type of story too.
For sure.
But well, cool. Yeah, I'm definitely checking this out and picking up and staying with it, because it's the hotness, as the kids are wont to say.
We are all about making sure the kids understand us on the show.
We are cultural icons, if nothing else. Paving the way, trendsetters.
Probably none of those things, but
I think we're going to find out one day that Matt has secretly had a TikTok this whole time.
Yeah, I'm a big fucking influencer.
No, he's got an OnlyFans page.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm not touching that one. I'm staying far, far away. Well, Matt's not wrong. Matt is an influencer. He says that jokingly, but it's true, because whenever Matt talks about a book, he typically does so in a way that makes me want to run out, grab it, and read it. So I'm hoping he's going to do that again today. We'll see. Maybe he's going to change my opinion on something. I got my fingers crossed. So, Matt, what did you read this week?
The book I'm going to talk about this week is book 3 from DC's Black Label Batman, The Three Jokers. This is the final issue in this 3-part series from Jeff Johns, Jason Fabok, and Brad Anderson. I went into this series really skeptical and apprehensive because I felt like it was just, the whole point was to explain why there have been 3 Jokers in the DC universe. I wanted them to pretend like that never happened and let's just move on with our lives. But I was very pleasantly surprised by how this turned out. I could not have asked for this to be handled any better. There's nothing I read in this where I'm like, I wish they'd have done something different. This was because this is a monumental task. Let's just identify that this is a monumental task for this creative team to address, without trying to get super cute and clever and retcon 80 years worth of history. And I thought the creative team, Jeff Johns especially, pulled this off without a hitch. Thought he did great. Jason Fabok's art, just to get this out in front, is obviously top notch. His interpretations, the way he illustrates all the characters are great. The way Jeff Johns wrote all the characters feels about as natural as it can, which obviously that shouldn't be a surprise. And it wrapped up very, very neatly this convoluted mess that the Joker had become in the DC universe. And it felt very loyal to the history of the character. Again, he wasn't trying to get cute and, say that he had found a well of space goo that turned him into an immortal being like some writers have in the past.
Space goo? Is that like a green liquid floating around?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So the final 3 pages in this book were just really, really good. It's not text heavy. He doesn't spend a whole hell of a lot of time trying to explain all these things and why it makes sense for continuity. It's just the economy of which he told this story, both the artwork and the dialogue, was frankly a masterwork in my opinion. This is, Jeff Johns. I took a big personal knock from me in reading the Watchmen series that he had done. I hated everything about it. This felt like the Jeff Johns that, he earned his current reputation on, because he killed it in this.
Are you talking about Doomsday Clock?
Doomsday Clock. That's the one. See, I tried to forget about it.
That was bad. Like that. Yeah. No, we don't have to acknowledge that exists.
Yeah. So, I was going into this very apprehensive, but was just couldn't have been happier with the way this series wrapped up, and the explanation given. Everything just felt so on point. So I highly recommend this book.
Yeah, and one of the things I loved about it, you talked about the art and the way Fabok draws the Jokers. It's almost like you're looking at the original artwork of these Jokers.
Yeah. His interpretations are very, very loyal to the history of the character.
Very much so. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more on this book. It was fantastic. I loved it. I loved the way it ended. I heard some complaints before I got around to reading it, or read some complaints on the internet where, they were saying that Johns didn't understand Batman lore, and that was obvious based off of this book. And I could not disagree more than with that statement.
Well, and Batman is such a monumental character in pop culture, not just comic books, but pop culture. Yeah, writing Batman to some degree is going to be a thankless task because he's way too big in pop culture. So,
in trying to unconvolute a villain as big as the Joker is a big task as well.
Yeah, that's why I say this was when I started this little review, I made the point, this was a monumental task this creative team took on. And frankly, going into it, you have to assume it's going to be a thankless task to a large degree just because of what kind of mess has set all this up. But they could not have done a better job, in my opinion.
Now, I might be wrong, but was it Snyder that introduced the concept of 3 Jokers, or was it Johns that did it?
I think it was Snyder.
Frankly,
I forget who wrote it. It was when Bruce sat in the Mobius chair which
was Justice League, but I don't remember who was writing it at the time.
Yeah, I forget off the top of my head, because it was not something I was really interested in. And I'm not going to say it was qualitatively or quantitatively bad. It just wasn't something I was interested in. But I remember it happening, and I remember it making waves because I want to say it had to have been Snyder. I don't think it was Johns. I could be completely wrong. I'll ask Google here in a little bit. But I have a question though. So that did happen in continuity, right? Like the Mobius chair. But this is Black Label. So is this? I thought this was happening outside of continuity. Is it in continuity?
I can only believe it's a continuity thing, even though, I mean, we don't know where it takes place. It certainly is not in current continuity because Alfred's still there.
Right.
But I believe it's a continuity thing, or it will be implemented as such, kind of like the whole Killing Joke was out of continuity, but then became continuity.
Well, and even with that, I think the only part of the Killing Joke that got to be continuity, because there were other things in the Killing Joke that didn't bleed over, but it was really just Barbara. What happened to Barbara came over.
Yeah.
See, and that's what, like, and I'm not, number one, let me just say, like, I actually am gonna have to go read the rest of this series now. I wasn't. We talked about the first issue on the show. I thought it was great. I thought it was fine, but it wasn't really anything that sunk its hooks in me. But now I'm gonna have to go read this because of Matt. So I'm throwing you a middle finger and a hug at the same time for that, because now I got to go find this stuff because you peaked.
That's a normal interaction for me.
It's just, that's the makeup.
That's what
love.
we do on this show.
But yeah, so I'm curious now, and one of my major complaints with DC, and I realize that now DC has new leadership, new management, and there's a whole lot of new stuff going on. One of my issues was that they started off like 1,000,007 different imprints or what have you. I mean, you had Bendis's little imprints that he was doing, and you had Black Label, and you had this label and that label and blue and red and a barcode, and none of it really made sense because some of it was continuity, some of it wasn't, and it was almost impossible to track. But now that they've narrowed it down to where really you just have Black Label, and that's like the only main imprint. I mean, you still got some of the all ages stuff and the DC superhero and the young adult graphic novels that they do, but I wish that they would tell us once and for all and make a hardline rule whether or not Black Label books are supposed to be continuity or not. And I haven't seen that they've done that, so I'm always going to question a book like this, or like a number of the other stuff that they've done, because like you said, when Bruce sat in the Mobius chair, that was continuity. That was in the world.
I think you have to look at the context of the story. This is addressing something that happened within continuity.
Right.
So in my mind, it would have to, because there's no reason to address an in-continuity thing outside of continuity.
Right.
No, so in my mind, this is an in-continuity story. Until somebody tells me otherwise.
Yeah, I don't think it's really, I think you're doing yourself a disservice by hammering that to death and trying to figure that out. I mean, let that evolve. Let's see where it evolves.
Well, maybe so. I just wish they, like, why make it Black Label then if that's what it is? Just make it a DC book. Because when I think of Black Label, I think
because they couldn't do it within current continuity because Alfred's dead.
Current story, yeah. I mean, throwing this into the current storyline would have been I mean, yeah, that'd have been weird.
Well, you don't
I
have
mean,
to
it would
throw
have been
in-
a disservice to Tiny and Tiny.
There is one conversation that happens in this book that I have to talk about, though, when he's talking to Alfred, and Alfred says, "Wait, you know who he is, don't you?" And he says, "I am the Batman. I've known since week 1 who he is."
Yeah.
So,
but
not to change the subject, but
no, you don't. I mean, I think we've always at least had an idea. I mean, he is the world's greatest detective. It wouldn't make any sense for him not to have at least an inkling or a clue.
Right.
But you don't have to just to have something outside of Black Label and in the current continuity. It doesn't have to tie into just the right now to be continuity. I mean, you solve that problem on the title page and you say, hey, this story takes place between Batman number blah 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 and blah blah blah, or Justice League number blah blah blah. I mean, you do that with a single sentence. They've done that forever in the history of comic books with little miniseries.
So also, you're doing yourself a disservice to try to figure out why DC Comics does what it does.
That's a valid point. I know.
See their distribution model.
Yeah, I know I'm overthinking it, but it just
you're overthinking
it. It baffles me, and I wish they'd stop just to make it some like.
I sent off an email to them while you were talking right now.
Okay, thank you.
And just said, please clarify this for Caleb.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'll get a response any moment now.
I'm over here trying to find out if the White Knight stuff actually is supposed to happen in continuity now.
The White Knight stuff is not continuity, and you can tell that from the context of the story.
Oh, I know. I'm loosely making a joke with that, but
I know you are. I'm just. I think you have to determine, as I said earlier, based on the context of the story, you have to determine what's going on.
Well, but. Yeah, for sure. It also frustrates me that I think about these things because I think out of the three of us, I'm also the one who just really doesn't give a shit about continuity the most.
Well, and the funny thing is that you were complaining that they had too many imprints, and now you're complaining that they're forcing them into the two imprints they have.
Right? Yeah. I just like I said. I'm admitting my own waffling here, but they took one bad idea and they didn't solve the problem.
We need to make a new section of the show, Caleb's Curmudgeon Corner.
Right.
Well, thought that the old curmudgeon was played by me. But apparently not. I've been bypassed.
Curmudgeon's about a state of mind, not an age.
I'm not meaning to be curmudgeonly either. I'm just like it's confusing. Like there's a I don't know. If they want to do it, then do it. If they don't, just scrap it and be done and just say, hey, we're just always going to tell stories and we're never doing continuity again. Like just pick one and go with it.
I mean, they change their continuity all the time. I mean, we have found out that New 52 never really kind of happened, but it still kind of happened. You pick the parts that did. I mean, this is DC, man. This is what they do.
Yeah, that's true. And I do like it to be flexible. So I get, I don't know.
I mean, at some point you just have to say it is continuity until something that is known continuity contradicts it.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
Which is, you can automatically write off the White Knight stuff because of what happens in that series.
For sure, yeah.
It's obviously not part of continuity. This is something that I can say is part of continuity until something within known continuity counteracts it. And then what's going to happen is you're going to have a relaunch about the time you figure it all out. Which... I'm not reading the current story of Metal, but my understanding is that it's possibly heading toward a relaunch. They're going to use Metal to relaunch.
I hope not.
Because they've started talking about multiple...
I don't pay attention to talk of relaunch because people have been saying a relaunch is coming for
forever. Yeah.
4 years. So it's like it's static to me. Yeah, bro.
Well,
relaunch is coming.
And this is just...
If you say relaunch long enough, if you keep saying relaunch every year, eventually it comes true. That's how it works. But it's like Jesus Christ.
This is from a friend of ours that's reading Metal, so not certainly something that's been released by them that they're going to do. I would say that based on all of the changes at DC, it would not surprise me to see a relaunch and a reorganization.
I haven't read any of the metal stuff. The artists have made me kind of want to flip through it because they've got like, I mean, Francis Maniple just drew an issue and that's amazing, but there's nothing about that story. And that's why I'm saying I hope not, because there's nothing about that story that makes me want to read those.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, that's
I
just,
tried to read the previous versions of metal and didn't care for them. So
yeah, there's a connective thing there. It seems to all be stemming from the same person that writes stories that I genuinely don't care about.
I did not know Tom King was writing metal.
No, Tom King's actually got talent. And the ability.
Well, he sure chooses when he uses it, doesn't he, Craig?
See, middle finger / hug. Anyway, Craig, what you been reading?
So I actually went back and well, I didn't go back, but I'm going to talk about a book that came out about 3 weeks ago. Did you guys read Werewolf by Night?
No, I
Either
didn't.
one of you? Okay.
I didn't. I waffled on it. I picked it up and looked at it at the store, and then ended up not picking it up, and I should have. I automatically regretted not doing it.
Yeah, so this is, of course, it's Marvel, and it's written by Taboo of Black Eyed Peas fame, along with B. Earl. The pencils were Scott Eaton, inks Scott Hanna, Miroslav Merva on colors, and Joe Sabino on letters. So this is an all-new Werewolf by Night. This is not Jack Russell. This is a new character. And this story starts with a few rednecks out hunting on, or maybe just finding a reason to shoot their big guns out on the reservation. I'm not really sure, but they're shooting at some rabbits and stuff. And after a little bit, Molly Gomez comes out. She's a Native American, and she shows up to warn them that they should probably leave the reservation, as there has been reports of a large beast out killing drunken assholes who don't understand the rights of personal property. And the rednecks go on to tell her that this is America and eagles and freedom and stuff, and just like she's an American, they're American, and they can hunt wherever they want to. Well, just about that time, the werewolf shows up and scares them off. Noticeably, he doesn't really hurt them, though. He just kind of throws them around a bit until they decide it would be better off if they weren't there. And so we find out that the werewolf is Jake Gomez, the brother of Molly, and that he started changing into a werewolf at the age of 13 when he started going through puberty, and that this is kind of a family curse or a tradition, or not really sure how to look at it. But with his help of his sister and his grandma, and they've learned that him listening to music while he's in werewolf form, he's able to control himself, and that he actually has the ability to change into a werewolf every night, not just on full moons, but he has less control of himself during full moons. So the story goes on, and Molly's been trying to convince him that he needs to use his powers to take down the pharmaceutical company that he's a janitor at. And he keeps telling her no, that he's not going after his work. And, things go on. And one day at work, he overhears his bosses talking about some pretty shady stuff and realizes that Molly's been right all along, and that, this pharmaceutical company needs to be stopped. So the next day, or that next evening, him and Molly head over, and they start investigating. He's in werewolf form, and there's a couple of trucks passing by, and she sends him out to go take care of these trucks, see what they're delivering to the pharmaceutical company. And as he rips open the truck, there are 3 large cybernetic creatures in there, 2 that look like werewolves, and 1 looks like an alien of some sort. And then to be continued. Another cool thing that happens in this book is we get a little cameo by Red Wolf, who's now a U.S. Marshal working reservations. And when he hears of this beast that's been on this reservation where Jake lives, he's heads out to investigate. So the art on this was fantastic. Especially the pages with the werewolf and the fight scenes, beautifully colored, just overall a good story. I love when we have some Native American tales in comics, especially in the big two. It doesn't seem like we get those nearly enough. But, not only are we introducing a new Native American werewolf by night, but we're also adding Red Wolf into the story. So very excited to see where this story goes.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go pick that up too, because I didn't know it had Red Wolf in it, and Red Wolf is one of my like C-listers who ought to be A-listers.
Yeah, he definitely needs to be in more, but I think him in this sort of role, where he's a marshal working on reservations, and that now you've got a new potential superhero living on a reservation, I can see the interaction there being really interesting.
So do they talk about Jack Russell at all? They address that?
They do not address Jack Russell at all. Now, the only thing they talk about is that Jake and Molly's dad is in prison, and that he is also a werewolf.
Huh. Okay.
So we don't know if he's related to Jake or not at this point. So it has not been addressed whether Jack is related to him. So, I'm sure at some point it will be addressed, but at this point, not. They deal with some funny things, like he keeps clogging up his grandma's. They live with their grandma, and he keeps clogging up her drains with his hair. And she's like, I know we're not supposed to use Drano, but it'd be nice to be able to take a shower and not have furry, dirty hair up to my knees. So, could you go get some Drano and fix this? So, and of course, he's like, well, it'd been nice if somebody would have wrote me a book so I knew how to deal with all of this stuff, like uncontrollable shedding. If this has been in our family forever. And the grandma says, well, maybe you should write the book, since you two are going to have children at some point. And of course, they're brother and sister, so they start freaking out. But yeah, an interesting story. It was a lot of fun. Interesting to see where it's heading. The interactions with Molly and the rednecks were great at the beginning of it. It just well written, well drawn book.
Check that out. Yeah, I need to go read this. I was looking at some pages on the Googles while you were talking, and
especially the werewolf pages.
Yeah, it's one of those series that especially with Taboo involved, I don't understand why it didn't make a bigger splash than what it did. I'm also really kind of glad that right off the bat they didn't try to they let this be Werewolf by Night and let it live in that world or that corner for a little bit, and haven't tried to shoehorn the larger Marvel universe in there yet, because that happens a lot when you get these little side books or little sub books. Like they want to stick Captain Marvel or something in there just for an appearance to try to draw. For some reason, they think that draws people in. I don't think it
to
does.
me, that always comes across like a sitcom that's failing. So they bring in like a guest star to bring people in on it. That's the way I always feel in those instances. But to tie like Red Wolf into it, that's not an A-lister.
No, and it makes
sense.
But
it's somebody that you definitely know, and it makes sense that he would be involved in the story.
Yep. It's kind of like those Snicker commercials in all the DC books. You're like, why is this here? What are you doing? why is this?
The worst part is when they're drawn better than the actual book you're reading.
Right. So you flip the page, keep reading. Like, where did these kids and candy bars come from? How did that work out? So, dude, that's dope. I'm gonna have to.
If you like werewolves, if you like, just that entire genre, it's worth the read. And I like the fact that he's able. They found a way to control him, and he's not just this lunatic, uncontrollable wolf when he's in that form.
No, he's a kid going through puberty.
I mean, it that part had the feel of Teen Wolf a little bit, but we didn't have to go through all the awkward moments that Teen Wolf did. It's already past all of that. So,
speaking of like loose pop culture references that tie into this, did you either one of you see where they're giving Ginger Snaps another go as a film?
I thought they were going to do it as a television show.
Is a television show? Yeah, I knew.
I
couldn't
think
remember
so. I
if it was
might be
long form or
wrong.
what.
Yeah.
But I know they tried to do it before and it just didn't work out. So I'm, again, like that loosely fits into the topic. So you had me think, I was like, oh yeah, they're doing Ginger Snaps. I'm gonna go check that out.
Yeah,
it'll be fun. Well, I'm
for
glad
sure.
I'm glad you two covered the big two books because y'all got that handled. I'm proud of you. I'm proud for you. I'm gonna turn left from there. I'm gonna talk about a book that does not come from Marvel or DC. That actually comes from a size-wise a smaller publisher, but at least in my opinion, humble or not so as it may be, does not lack the quality that we should expect from anything. And that's a publisher called Vault Comics, that has put out just a dude. I don't know. I know every year that we find these smaller publishers that are just having a moment and we latch onto them, and it may not last. I mean, we had that with Aftershock for a while. We had that with Ahoy for a while, and then those two publishers are still producing great stuff. But we find these publishers that are small press that really just were feeling in that moment, and that's been Vault for me this year. Hands down. Last year, I think it was Boom. Boom Studios was that to me last year. Vault this year with the plot really, really sucked me in and grabbed me, made me start paying attention. Then they came out with this book that they're doing right now called The Autumnal that is just outstanding. I think it's gorgeous. And then this past week, a new issue came out, a new series came out that I think is just fantastic. It hit me in just the right moment, and it hit me in just the right way. And the series is called Giga. This is written by Alex Packnadell. It is drawn by John Lay, or no, excuse me, yeah, drawn by John Lay, colored by a colorist named Rosh, kind of like Cher, only got one name, and then letters by Atidia Bidikar. And then something else I thought was really cool, and it plays into the main character. They had somebody that they credited as a sensitivity reader, and that's Danny Lore. And that's important because the main character in this book is an amputee. They are a differently abled or disabled individual. They are double amputee. His legs from the knees down are gone, and so I'm assuming they had Danny read through this to just make sure that there wasn't anything that a more able-bodied person might put in there that really would seem harsh or unfair or just wrong from that standpoint. And from the standpoint of somebody who uses a wheelchair or who uses prosthetics or who is an amputee. And we always talk about this, right? Like we talk about, at least from my context and the things that I've hit on most, when a story is written about a queer person or about a gay person by a straight person, like just take it to your friend, like take it to one of your buddies who's gay or lesbian or trans or bisexual, and have them read over it just to make sure that you're not saying anything that is going to read wrong on the page. And it looks like that's what they did with Danny Lore. I've never seen anybody listed as a sensitivity reader before, but I certainly would not be opposed to that becoming just kind of a commonplace thing, because I think that helps. I don't think you have to be a member of whatever community or class of people to write about them, but when you're not, you need to have your shit straight, right? I think that's just kind of how it ought to be. If you need to do your homework as a writer, and they did that here. Giga is a world that I'm glad we don't live in. I'm fine just being an observer of this world. It's a little bit of a futurescape, a little bit of a dystopia. Essentially, in this world, there are these giant mech robot creatures that are sentient, kind of like Transformers, but they don't transform. They're like the cheap Transformers that your grandma bought you that don't actually transform. They just say Transformers. They're actually just action figures that don't turn into anything. And that's what the Giga are. They're these giant beings that came to this planet. You can assume the planet is Earth, because it is inhabited by humans. But they landed here. They kind of kicked it here for a little bit. I assume they landed here. They may have came out from the ground. Who knows? They emerged from somewhere, and they kind of kicked it for a little bit. Everything was cool, and then they had a giant Giga civil war, I guess you could call it. There were two factions that really culminated in something called the Battle Beneath the Feet, where this strike engine named Balefire conquered the Red King, who was his own brother. And you know all this because these characters are touring, so to speak, a temple. You've got this kind of old man, very much like a monk minister, leading this group of kids that are in uniform, including a young man named Evan, who is, he's in a wheelchair. He's our amputee that I was just speaking about, and they're all members of a religion, this type of church. And what you come to find out through this is that after this Giga civil war, the winning side, at least being written from history, being written from the sense of the victors, the more benevolent side of the robot army, they all came and they settled down in the cities, and they all just kind of went quiet. They shut down, and they allow humans to live inside them. I mean, these are like skyscraper sized giant robots, and so essentially cities formed up out of these giant robots who have just kind of shut down, now that the threat was over. And the humans have cultivated an entire society around them, a religion, a culture, an economy based off of this idea of the robots as almost godlike figures, or the Giga as almost godlike figures. They've set up temples and homes and apartments and everything inside these hulls. And what they're, as with all religion that springs up, you're going to have skeptics, you're going to have heretics, you're going to have people inside the religion. And our buddy Evan is one of those people. As they're kind of walking around, this priest is asking questions, and Evan's not really paying attention, and he kind of, he's going in one ear and out the other, and he gets called out. The priest is like, "Hey dude, like, what am I talking about? Why is it that you think the robots have graced us? Why they let us, they house us? Why they give us shelter?" And he gives the generic out of the, I worship robot Bibles. And the guy's like, no, we all can read, dude. Like, I'm asking you for your opinion. And he gives a really good one that no one ever has actually considered. He's like, no, I think that there is we're part of their microbiome. I think there's a symbiosis here where the robots allow us to live inside them, not out of any sense of benevolence, but because they need us. I mean, think about the microbes and the fungi in your gut that help digest your food. Technically they're inside us, and we let them stay there, but we couldn't survive without them. I think we have that kind of relationship with the Giga. And the priest didn't fill in that answer. Like, he's just like, what are you talking about, dude? Like, that's nuck and futs. Like, we're talking about gods here. Who are we to think that the God, that we are of any service to the gods other than worship? But that conversation doesn't get to go on very much longer, because all of a sudden there's an explosion, and it's something terrible, and you don't know what caused it. You don't know if it was a bomb, or you don't know if it was a just a happenstance or what happened. But everybody's freaking out. There's blood, death, and destruction all around, and the priest catches a little bit of shrapnel. About this time, all these other robots come out, and they're more human sized, that are there, and they're calming everybody down. But the last thing Evan's looking for in this moment is his friend Akiro, or Akio, and Akio has been kind of absent all day, but he sees Akio up at the top where the explosion happened, and she's holding a pair of goggles, something that you would wear as an engineer, like when you're working on something. You get the feeling that she had something to do with this explosion, and this explosion is going to have a very large impact on Evan's life. So much so that 11 years later, where the book kind of lands you at, or 13 years later, excuse me, where the book lands you at, Evan is no longer a member of that religious organization. He's no longer trying to come up through its ranks. He's become a little bit of a social dissident who lives in the outskirts of these cities, and is just really trying to survive. He's poor, he's downtrodden, and where the book opens up, and after all these years, he's like laying in the mud. He's had the shit beaten out of him, and he's barely scraping through. And a friend finds him, and she's just like, who who did this to you was that the Dusters, and the Dusters are these, they're almost a, I guess you could see them as a terrorist organization. They've built up another religion that abhors the Giga. They try to destroy the Giga. They want to tear down the society that worships the Giga. They live on the outskirts. They also live in an area where there are these other Giga who didn't turn themselves off. They didn't become still, and they're called nomads. They just kind of wander around being a chaotic force. But he's like, no, it wasn't either one of those. It must have just been some reavers. They took all my metal. They took the scraps that I'd made. I was trying to go turn them in for rations. So I guess I'm just going to be hungry tonight. I might as well just go back to my apartment. And she, this person who finds him, like, no, here, take some of mine. You won't get a full ration, but you'll get a part ration. At least you'll get something in your stomach. And he's like, no, fuck that. I'm not going to let these people win. I'm not going to let these thugs who did this to me win. I'm going to go find what I need to get my full amount. Well, and so he rolls off into the bush, and they happen upon the carcass of a Giga that's been freshly destroyed, which is not something that happens. I mean, even the Dusters who hate these things aren't that bold to have done this so close to the cities where they would have, or something, could have gotten to them. And so they kind of walk in and they realize that there's something has happened in the core of this Giga. And it's not only killed the Giga, but this Giga had these people, these scientists, these, individuals, humans who were inside, assumedly just doing whatever they were tasked to do. And they're all dead as well. There's been an internal core malfunction. So they take what they need, but they decide that they need to keep their mouths shut. Like, they don't need to tell anybody about this because it could go too far, and they go about their business. They're going to kind of keep it hush hush. Not to mention the fact that they don't want people knowing they were there. They don't want to be involved, right? It's like, hey, I didn't see nothing. I'm not saying nothing. I'm going to go about my business. So Evan goes back home again. Like I said, he's living impoverished. He's down in the dumps. He's got this downtrodden, wreckage, debris-filled apartment in an old, rotted, rusted, decrepit Giga. But it's home. He's made it what it is, and he gets there. And when he enters his apartment, there's a dude standing in his shit, like some guys in his space that he's not supposed to be there. But it's some dude that he knows. He was in, I guess you'd call it religious school with the dude way back when. The guy's now a cop. The guy's now he's a detective that's trying to figure out what's going on, crimes being committed, stop some of these terrorist acts from happening, protect the Giga. And he's coming really because Evan is, while he is a religious heretic, while he's this person who abhors a lot of things, who just doesn't want to be involved, he's a damn good engineer. Like, he's a dude who he knows these Giga, their mechanics, their drives, everything. He can repair them. So he's trying to kind of talk him into coming back into the fold, but Evan's not having it. He kind of gives him the cold shoulder. But while homeboy's standing there talking to him, you see something dripping down the back of his neck. It's like an oil something. And if you follow the oil trail up, you see that there's one of the little Giga, one of the little robots who are more human sized, like hiding up there. For some reason, you're not really sure why. But that's whose oil is dripping down. So as soon as Evan's friend leaves, of course, this Giga climbs down. And it's a friend of Evan's. It's a robot who, unlike a lot of the Giga, I guess Evan has either fixed his drives or done something where this robot is sentient. It can think for itself, which is somehow illegal in this culture that worships these things, which makes you kind of give it a side eye, I think, purposefully. But our little robot buddy he's malfunctioning. His hardware is eroding. Something's happening, and so he's losing his intelligence. He's losing his ability to think. He's losing his memories. He's losing his drive. And Evan is hell bent to help his friend. So you kind of get this a little bit of a Calvin and Hobbes feel between these two. Like I don't get along with people who are real, so I've made you my best friend, and I'm not going to lose you by any means. And and so Evan, he realizes that one of our little buddy robots, Core, is really going bad real fast, and he's like, okay, I can get the parts to fix this from the carcass of the thing we found in the woods, but it's getting late, and now that there's these roaming people out there that the same people that beat me up last time, I'd be in more danger, but I don't think I can wait till the morning time. So he sets out. He takes he gets his robot, and they go they go out into the woods, and they go find this this robot, and they start climbing it like a mountain to get to the parts, because they're going to fix it. And just on the last page, what you see are these people kind of laying in wait in ambush, and you really don't necessarily know who they are, but you can assume that they're the Dusters. Now, because this book is really well written, you get about 3 pages of life inside a Duster camp, and while Evan and the cities around them and the people that worship the Giga, they see the Dusters as outlaws, as anathema to society. The Dusters see themselves as freedom fighters, and so you see them in a camp, caring for an individual who had just gotten shot or wounded or something that bad has happened to him, and he keeps saying over and over again that the war was a triangle. The war was a triangle. And everything about this book just speaks to me, dude. You guys, like, I love the I love a good metaphor, right? And I love a good simile in comics. I love that this is both a take on culture and a take on the idea that modern day culture, as we love it, as we know it, really has become beholden to and almost worships technology. I mean, I'm sitting here right now in front of a laptop and a microphone and an audio box and a cell phone that is always attached to my hip. Like, we can't live without these things, and in some ways we almost live to serve these things. You could argue that, like, it'd be a very loose argument at this point, but what this book is, it's a take on that, and it shows all of these other organizations and these groups and stuff that modern culture looks at as plebeians and Luddites, and like, you don't know how to use this latest piece of technology. Well, you're just dumb. Well, no, it's because they don't need it. And I'm not one of those people. So, it's just one of those things. Like, I need the technology. But I'm kind of fascinated by it. I mean, just on its face, on its nose, it's a story about friendship. It's a story about the connection between these 2 people. Like I said, I'm a sucker for Calvin and Hobbes. And you get some of that there. And just giant robots, man. It's great. I can't wait to see where this series is going, and I can't see where it's going. Like, it shows you a trail, but it doesn't forecast what's going to happen so completely that you already kind of can see where it's going to end. I'm about it, dude. This book is dope. The art, if you're curious, if you've never seen, as I had never seen before this, John Lay's art. If you have read books like Tartarus, this book has a very Jack Cole feel to it. It's got beautiful lines. It's simplistic when it needs to be. He doesn't have a thick line, but he does have a bold line to his work. The detail is there. It's a little Stokoe-esque too. I think you can see a relationship there, to stuff that James Stokoe has done. Phenomenal, beautiful work. The designs are clever. They are detailed. There's a texture to the work that really just drives home that the fact that as beholden and dependent to technology and to the metal that these people are, that they can't stop the decay, that the world is rusting, and they're continually just trying to keep up the status quo. They're like little hamsters in a wheel, and something's got to give before it breaks. There's 2 different covers that I've seen that I thought both were great. I picked up the one that's got one of the Giga, like, holding a bonsai tree, with the Evan's Giga friend, like, hanging out, sitting there. He has a name. I just was stupid and didn't write it down. and haven't found it yet. Oh, his name is Laurel. The robot's name is Laurel. And so Laurel's like perched on a thumb, just chilling. If you didn't pick this up, dude, I cannot beg you or recommend this to you enough. Vault and these creators went above and beyond any expectation.
So you said he looked like Jack Cole's work?
Yeah.
From like the pinup artist from like the 40s?
No, so that's a different artist. There is there's another artist, Jack T. Cole.
I was really confused for a second.
Well, no, it's funny because you say we talk about Jack Cole. The Jack Cole that I'm talking about, Jack T. Cole. If you look at his like Instagram handle, it's Nude Jack Cole specifically because of that. I first found him. The book that, what was it? Shit, I'm going blank. I wasn't ready to talk about it. Cullen Bunn wrote a series. I think it was Cullen Bunn that wrote a series not too long ago it's actually getting the movie treatment. I want to say it got announced about a month ago. Let me go to Google real quick.
Sorry, it doesn't need to be all that.
No, The Unsound. If you guys remember The Unsound, that's Jack Cole.
Okay.
The book about the young girl who gets a job in a psych ward, but then loses. It's the descent into madness, kind of like we were talking about. He also did the at least the first arc or the first couple issues of Tartarus, that Johnny Christmas book. I think we covered the first issue on here. Just really dope work, but confused the fuck out of me when I first found him, because I went to find out some more stuff that he had done and pulled up old school Jack Cole's work. I'm like, huh?
I was like, wait, this guy did basically like, 1940s pinup art.
Yeah, no, different guy, but
gotcha. Okay.
But Lay does work very much in that vein.
Gotcha. Okay.
I'm about it, dude. I'm gonna sing this book's praises for a hot minute.
All right.
Best thing I've read in a long, long time.
Sounds like something Jerry and Sean would really like.
Absolutely. Like if you like giant robot, if you're a Transformers fan, if you like, what is the Japanese robots, the Gundams, if you like Gundam stories, like you're gonna love this. But to be honest, I'm not a fan of those things. Like, I'm not a Transformers dude. I'm not a Gundam wing guy. I'm not a giant robot. Like robots don't.
You're not a giant robot? Damn, that just like really blew my perception of you.
Well, I'm undercover. I'm a mid-size.
Spoilers.
Mid-sized robot. But
we thought you were a giant robot.
I'm not a fan particularly of those genres. But even with that, like this book, it hit all the right marks. I'm just like, oh, this is dope. I mean, dude, I think you can even tie it to a Star Wars perspective. Like, there are people whose favorite character in Star Wars is R2-D2. I mean, our buddy Flippa. He
is not a giant robot, though.
He isn't, but he is a robot. He is a droid. CP3O. There's a little bit of C3PO in Laurel, in that character. Like, there's some of that. So even if you're not this big mech loving person, you just like the concept, you're gonna dig this book. There's a lot in here for a lot of people.
Gotcha.
Me personally, I'm down for the commentary on society and the religio-fascism that's there, because that's kind of where my mindset is a lot lately. And even though I like to forget that it's reality, it's nice to study those things and to see those things delivered in fiction. Yeah, dude, this my shit is what I'm trying to say.
Awesome. Glad you enjoyed it, man.
Yeah, it's
always fun when we find something we really like.
Oh, dude, straight up about it. Just made my little heart sing. Cannot wait. And I think it's a 4 or 6 issue series. I'm not quite sure. But I'm looking forward to it, man. I want it now.
Awesome.
But I gotta wait. You know why I gotta wait? Because they don't give it to us all right off the bat. They give it to us
Not in America, they don't.
No,
other parts of the country get the trades all at once.
That's true.
In other parts of the world.
But here, and in the way that these things are, they make us draw it out. They keep us on the edge of our seat. But in doing that, they give us little bits, little floppies, each and every week. Sometimes on Tuesday, sometimes on Wednesday. These new books come out at the places that are not unlike our own Giga temples, our local comic shops, to where we all go and we worship at the altar of the cash register, as they distribute these addictive little creatures that we love to read. And so each week we like to end our little humble show here with love and affection, and give everybody listening at home an idea of what we're going to be grabbing next week. It may be a new series. It may be the last issue of a series we've been enjoying. Maybe a graphic novel, maybe an OGN, maybe a manga, maybe anything that's going to hit the stands somewhere that we haven't read yet, but we think is going to be good. You know, we're kind of hedging our bets, so we're setting the menu, as it were. So I want to know what one thing that you guys are grabbing in this next week is, and you can fight amongst yourselves on who to go first.
Go ahead, Matt.
Well, I'm going to grab
Well,
from Marvel Comics, Wolverine Black, White, Blood, #1. This is going to be from various creative teams, starting out with Jerry Duggan and Adam Kubert. These are all going to be one-off stories. Apparently violence is the only thing that's guaranteed, that and quality. So if you're a decent person, you will be picking this up.
Nice. I am going to pick a DC Black Label book by Jeff Lemire. And Caleb, I can promise you this is not in the main canon. This is Sweet Tooth: The Return. The solicitations for this say this is no rehash of the original series, but rather a bold reimagining of the Sweet Tooth mythology. I don't know exactly what that means, but it's Jeff Lemire, it's Sweet Tooth. I'm going to give it a shot, and it's a 6-issue miniseries.
Sweet Tooth was originally Vertigo, right?
Yeah, it was Vertigo.
Yeah. That's interesting to see old school Vertigo titles coming out with the DC label now. Not that we haven't seen that before, but
yeah, I mean, kind of like Swamp Thing.
Yeah.
Well,
the book I want to tell you guys to pick up is in continuity. It's absolutely continuity in multiple worlds. It's almost biblical, you could say. It's got to happen. It's also the last issue of the series. There were 4 of these issues. Spoke about one of them on the show not too long ago. But because they're canon, you have to have them. You have to. I mean, I don't care what show you're talking about. They are canon of that. This is by creators such as James Asmus, Tony Fleets, Ian Flynn, and Sarah Petrie Duracher. And it is My Little Pony Transformers #4, Friendships in Disguise. It is the best thing that came out this year. It might be better than Alan Moore. I don't know. Could be. It's in the running. I
You're a jerk.
Obviously am just kind of joking and shooting shit, but I'm not lying when I say I have absolutely loved every page of this series. It cracks me up because I am not a My Little Pony fan, and I genuinely don't like half of these Transformers. Tony Fleece, his art is exquisite. I mean, it's that chef's kiss type of art. It's cartoony. It's what you get from the cartoons and the shows, but it's just dope. It really is fun. So in this final issue, when the Insecticons descend upon Sweet Apple Acres and begin to devour the Apple family's crop, it's up to AJ and her siblings to rally and save the farm. Bum-ba-da-bum. Meanwhile, Optimus Prime and motherfucking Twilight Sparkle are finally, dude, I've been waiting on this so much. They're finally banding together, and the ponies and the Autobots are going to get things back.
Just what the world. Wait. Oh, Optimus. I thought you said Megatron.
No, Optimus Prime.
I don't know.
Optimus motherfucking Prime and Twilight motherfucking Sparkle. are back, and they're joining up. They're tag teaming
Just what
off
the
the
world
ropes.
has clamored for 30 years.
Dude,
now.
this is going to bring the world together. This is it. This is the uniting factor. This is peace in the world right here. Republicans, Democrats.
And next week we bring you the Care Bears versus I don't know, Scooby Doo or something.
I want a Care Bears Gargoyles team up. I would read the shit out of that. Anyway, it's the finale I've been waiting for, and you have too. I know you have. You can pretend like you haven't, but I'm going to call you a liar, and I'm telling all your friends that you read it because you should. It's fun. I promise you. It's IDW at its best. It's Transformers, My Little Pony, Friendship in Disguise, issue number 4. 4 of 4. It's done. It's finale. It's over.
So what you're saying is the last issue.
It's it. It's all you're going to get.
You shoot it in the back of the head. So
pumping right into your veins. Well, you gotta enjoy it while it lasts.
That's how it's going to end. She's going to break her leg, and he's going to have to put her down.
Spoilers, but yeah.
It's the old Yeller scene with Optimus looking inside a crate, saying "Twinkles."
Shipping Twilight Sparkle off to the glue factory.
Tell me about the rabbits, Optimus. All right, enough jokes. Well, that is the 4th issue, and it comes to an end. So comes to an end this latest episode of the Southern Fried Geekery podcast. Unless you guys, my dear co-hosts, can think of anything else we forgot to cover, we need to talk about.
Yeah, I think we got it all.
Feel good about it? All right. Well, come back and see us next time, every Sunday, same time, same place. Tell all your friends. It's free. We don't charge you for this. All you got to do is, spend a little bit of time on it, and that's not so bad. We try to be.
I mean, you can send us money if you want to.
Valid point. We do accept donations. Craig also will show up to your bachelorette party and strip, but that's on Craig. That's not me. That's all between you and him. But all that money does go into the production quality. So, I'm just saying, put some dollar bills in Craig's little string there. If you want more of this, if you want more jokes, you can come hang out with us and see us on all the social media places we mentioned last time. We're there. We're talking. We're posting. We're having fun. We would love it if you would join us. And like I said, word of mouth does great. If you download us on iTunes, leave us a rating and review. Let us know how we're doing. It not only helps us kind of judge our quality, what that may be, which is, exquisite. It gets no better, but it also helps the algorithms that are iTunes let other people know that, hey, they might want to listen to this. So we would appreciate any review you leave us. And with that, I'm done. No, I'm not. This is the PSA moment of the show. November 3rd, it's election day. I'm not going to tell you who to vote for on here. You let your conscience be your guide, but go vote. Go spend a few minutes on Google, find out who's running for where, up the ticket, down the ticket, and vote. Vote. We need you to. The world needs you to. America needs you to. Arkansas needs you to. Little Rock needs you to. You got to vote. Maumelle needs you to. Bisco needs you to. All these places need you to. You got to do it. And with that, I'm going to say go forth and love some comics. Woo!